Welcome to Pagoda Podcast, where we explore ideas, strategies, and insights to help businesses grow and scale.
Glad to be here for this one.
So, imagine for a second that you are sitting at the head of a boardroom table.
Okay.
But instead of just looking out at your traditional human department heads.
Like your CFO, your CMO.
Right, exactly. Instead of just them, you are also overseeing this silent, invisible, but just relentlessly powerful digital architecture. An entity that can process, more multidimensional market data in a single second than your entire executive team could process over their natural careers.
Which is a staggering thought.
It really is. And it forces this massive, almost existential question for anyone operating at the executive level right now. Basically, what happens to human leadership when machines start doing the heavy lifting of corporate cognition?
That is the big question.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are exploring the absolute bleeding edge of how the C-suite is evolving. Our mission is to unpack this foundational text, the future CXO, leading through artificial intelligence, and really understand why business owners, partners, and you, the listener, must fundamentally rethink what leadership looks like over the next decade.
Yeah, and it really is a critical teardown of old ideas right at the outset. We really need to abandon the idea that this transition is just another IT procurement cycle.
Right, this isn't just buying new software.
Exactly. We are not talking about migrating to a new cloud provider or updating your ERP system. We are looking at a total structural paradigm shift in the underlying mechanics of organizational oversight.
A complete rewiring.
Yes. The definition of executive management is moving from just directing human capital to orchestrating a true hybrid cognitive architecture.
Let's pull on that thread of the hybrid architecture for a second, because the source text heavily centers on this evolution from traditional management to intelligence-driven leadership.
Right.
The future CXO isn't just managing operational divisions anymore. They are managing integrated intelligence.
Managing human talent alongside artificial intelligence.
Exactly. A dual engine. You've got human nuance on one side and algorithmic scale on the other. What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, it forces a complete reevaluation of how strategic decisions get made. Historically, the ultimate currency of a highly paid executive was their intuition.
Famous gut feeling.
Right. We always glorified the gut feeling. But if you break down what business intuition actually is, it's simply human pattern recognition.
Experience, basically.
Yeah, it's a heuristic developed over 20 or 30 years of navigating specific market cycles. And that is valuable, but it is bounded by the sheer cognitive limits of what one human brain can retain and process.
So relying on just that is getting dangerous.
Exactly. We're entering an era where relying primarily on bounded human heuristics is basically a massive fiduciary liability.
Because the sheer velocity and volume of the data you need just to stay competitive has completely outpaced us. If you are relying on a gut feeling to manage a global supply chain, and you're facing simultaneous geopolitical shocks, tariff adjustments, localized weather disruption.
You can't compute all that.
Right. You are essentially driving blindfolded. The data's all there, but human intuition just cannot synthesize it fast enough to actually be actionable.
And that is where the operational role of modern AI steps in. According to the text, AI provides an unprecedented level of executive visibility.
Much more than just a monthly report.
Oh, absolutely. It isn't generating end-of-month lag reports. It is executing dynamic real-time optimization.
Give us an example of that.
Okay, take a complex manufacturing operation. A traditional COO might review a quarterly output report and then, adjust procurement strategies based on historical inefficiencies.
Looking in the rearview mirror.
Right. But an intelligence-driven CXO oversees a system that is continuously analyzing thousands of supply chain variables right now.
Forecasting trends in real time.
Yes. Forecasting localized demand spikes based on unstructured data like social sentiment, and autonomously rerouting raw materials to different facilities to optimize margins. And it does this before the bottleneck ever actually occurs.
Okay, let's unpack this because I want to push back on that setup just a little bit.
Sure.
If the system is forecasting the demand and identifying the bottleneck and autonomously rerouting the materials to optimize the margin.
What is the executive actually doing?
Exactly. Aren't we just accelerating toward a fully automated enterprise where the C-suite is essentially reduced to a rubber stamp for the algorithm?
It's the elephant in the room.
Right. If you look at algorithmic trading, machines basically cleared out the human trading floors. The natural anxiety for you as a listener, whether you're a manager or a CEO, is that AI doesn't just enhance your leadership, It eventually hollows it out entirely.
That is a very common anxiety, but the text is firm on this. It fundamentally misunderstands the difference between operational execution and strategic direction. AI enhances leadership. It absolutely does not replace it.
How so?
Well, algorithmic trading is a perfect example of closed-loop execution. AI is phenomenal at optimizing within bounded environments where the rules are fixed.
The variables are known.
Right, the variables are quantifiable and the objective function is mathematically clear, like maximizing a specific trade spread.
But business isn't a closed loop.
Not at all. Business leadership is an open-ended, highly ambiguous environment. It is filled with irrational actors, shifting cultural expectations, and unquantifiable risks. The AI handles the data analysis and the automation, but it possesses absolutely zero context for the broader reality in which the business operates.
Give me a practical example of where that boundary between execution and strategy actually breaks down if you just leave an AI unchecked.
Okay, consider entering a new, highly volatile emerging market. The algorithmic models can project your profit margins, map out the most efficient distribution logistics, and hedge your currency risks with flawless precision.
The math say go for it.
The math will tell you to aggressively expand. But what the algorithm cannot do is assess the severe reputational risk to your global brand equity if your optimized distribution network relies on a local partner with a history of human rights violations.
Oh, wow.
It cannot weigh the ethical implications of your supply chain. It cannot understand how a localized political scandal might alienate your core demographic back home.
Because AI just optimizes for the metric it is assigned.
Exactly. It completely lacks the capacity for moral reasoning, culture building, ethical oversight, and contextual judgment. Those remain firmly in the human domain.
So the AI provides the computational horsepower, but the human provides the guardrails and the long-term vision. The human advantage is rooted in judgment and ethics.
It goes even deeper than just providing guardrails. The core dynamic of leadership completely inverts.
What do you mean by inverts?
Well, we are accustomed to a corporate culture where the most valuable person in the boardroom is the one who has all the right answers.
The smartest person in the room.
Right. But in an intelligence-driven future, answers are a heavily commoditized resource. The machine will instantly generate a perfectly calculated answer to any operational problem you feed it.
So having the answer isn't special anymore.
Exactly. The value of the executive is no longer about holding the answer. It is entirely about defining the architecture of the inquiry.
The power of the question.
Yes.
The text highlights this fascinating dynamic. If the AI is essentially an oracle that perfectly optimizes whatever objective you give it, the existential risk to your business isn't a lack of data. The real risk is asking the oracle the wrong question.
Precisely. Let's say a CXO asks the system to aggressively optimize for short-term quarterly revenue.
Happens all the time.
Right. The AI might achieve that by systematically degrading customer support and substituting inferior materials. It will hit the quarterly target flawlessly,
While simultaneously destroying the company's brand loyalty.
and driving the 3-year churn rate off a cliff. The AI succeeded at the micro task it was given, but the executive failed at the macro strategy.
That makes a lot of sense.
The defining mechanism of leadership becomes knowing which questions are actually worth asking in the first place, and ensuring those questions align with the long-term vision of the enterprise.
Which means the traditional toolkit we've used to develop executives is rapidly becoming obsolete.
It has to evolve.
Right. If intuition is out and AI has all the answers, what skills do you as a future leader actually need? We are looking at a demand for extreme adaptability, strategic thinking, deep cross-functional understanding, and a very specific type of technological literacy.
Let's break down that technological literacy because the source points out a really critical paradox here for emerging leaders.
A technical paradox.
Yes. The future CXO does not need to be a machine learning engineer. You do not need to know how to write Python scripts or build data pipelines or manually tune a neural network.
You don't need to be a technical operator.
Exactly. However, you must possess a rigorous conceptual understanding of how these systems function. You need to understand data governance, financial literacy, algorithmic bias, data drift, and the latency limits of your infrastructure.
It is similar to how a modern CEO understands corporate finance. A Fortune 500 CEO might not be the one building the discounted cash flow models cell by cell in Excel, but they absolutely know how to stress test the underlying assumptions of that model.
They know where the math can hide bad strategy.
Right. Future CXO has to be able to stress test the AI's logic in the exact same way, Because if you don't understand the structural limitations of the technology, you are essentially abdicating your leadership to the IT department.
And that technological awareness directly enables the next critical skill, which is cross-functional understanding.
Unifying the business.
Yes, for decades, corporate environments have tolerated massive operational silos. Finance had its separate enterprise software. Operations and supply chain lived in another. Marketing was often its own ecosystem,
They rarely talk to each other,
usually only synthesizing data retroactively during a quarterly board meeting.
which was totally fine when the speed of business allowed for 30-day reporting lags. But AI aggressively accelerates the metabolism of the entire enterprise.
It accelerates it to the point where silos become fatal. AI models are only as effective as the data lakes they draw from. If your systems are isolated, your intelligence is fractured.
So you need a unified direction.
An intelligence-driven CXO uses their cross-functional perspective to mandate unified data architectures. When you break down those silos, the AI can find correlations that humans naturally miss.
Give us an example of that correlation.
For example, a unified system might detect that a slight uptick in a specific customer acquisition cost in your marketing data is highly correlated with a downstream bottleneck in your warehouse operations.
The CXO's ultimate task is ensuring those insights connect.
Taking disparate departments and connecting them into one forward-moving direction, you are the unifier of disparate corporate languages.
So let's ground this theory in execution. Because if you're a partner or a business owner listening right now, the theoretical division of labor makes perfect sense. But the practical reality of integrating this into a mid-market enterprise is daunting.
It's a huge shift.
How do you deploy this level of intelligence responsibly and strategically today without completely destabilizing your current organizational structure?
This is where we have to look at strategic integration frameworks. The text uses the Black Pagoda approach as the prime example for this transition.
Let's talk about that model.
Their methodology centers on a really core philosophy. Integrating AI is not a cost-cutting exercise aimed at replacing people. It is an empowerment mechanism for the leadership layer.
That distinction alone really dictates the success or failure of the deployment. I've seen companies roll out advanced predictive tools, the technical deployment is totally flawless, but the human capital fundamentally rejects it.
The middle management antibodies attack the system.
Exactly, because they perceive the AI as an existential threat to their livelihoods.
When AI is positioned as a replacement tool, you breed a culture of defensive stagnation. The Black Pagoda approach circumvents this by positioning the technology specifically to enhance visibility and isolate value.
So they blend AI-powered insights with human strategy.
Yes. Instead of focusing on automating lower-level tasks just to save margin, they deploy AI-powered strategy to give the C-suite a dynamic, predictive dashboard of actual value creation.
Moving away from lagging indicators.
Exactly. They shift the executive team away from managing last month's EBITDA toward governing predictive leading indicators.
Walk me through the mechanics of how that visibility actually translates to enterprise value. How does that predictive framework change the day-to-day reality of the executive?
It strips away the noise of vanity metrics. A traditional dashboard might tell you that overall sales are up 5%.
Which sounds great.
Sounds fantastic. But an AI-powered framework, synthesizing internal operational data with external market signals, will tell you that while overall sales are up, the specific product line driving that growth is operating on a highly fragile supply chain.
And the cost to maintain that is hurting you.
It will show that the cost of capital to maintain that inventory is eroding your true enterprise value. It isolates the actual engines of growth. Black Pagoda operates as a partner that blends these deeply computational insights with high-level human strategy, helping leadership teams make decisions that are not just faster, but structurally sounder.
Which becomes the ultimate leverage point when a business is preparing for a liquidity event. If an enterprise is scaling with the specific intention of an eventual acquisition or exit, the buyer's due diligence process has fundamentally evolved.
Dramatically so. When a private equity firm or a strategic acquirer looks at a target company now, they are assessing risk as much as they are assessing revenue.
They don't want a fragile system.
Right. If a company's success relies entirely on the nuanced, uncodified intuition of its founding team, that is a massive risk. Intuition does not scale. And intuition often leaves the building once the founders vest their shares.
Acquirers do not want to buy a cult of personality.
They want to buy a resilient, predictable machine.
So by utilizing a framework like Black Pagoda's, you are essentially proving to the market that your strategic decisions are backed by verifiable, scalable models.
You are presenting a modernized data room where your growth projections aren't just optimistic spreadsheets. They are algorithmic models governed by competent human leadership. A company that has successfully blended AI-powered operational speed with rigorous human judgment is inherently more agile and significantly more valuable.
It drives up the mobile.
It directly drives up the acquisition multiple because it proves that the value of the business will survive the departure of the original executive team.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, completely redefining the mandate of modern leadership. Let's distill this into the absolute core insights you need to take away to navigate this shift.
The main takeaways.
First and foremost, AI is going to relentlessly accelerate the speed of the market. Operations, forecasting, data synthesis, it will all happen at a velocity that human cognitive limits simply cannot match. You just cannot compete on raw processing power anymore.
And second, that artificial acceleration requires a much firmer human hand on the strategic wheel. You cannot abdicate your leadership to the algorithm because the algorithm has no context, no moral compass, and no understanding of long-term brand equity.
Human leadership will always define the direction.
Always. True executive power, the kind that builds durable, scalable enterprise value, will only come from successfully blending the computational speed of the machine with the ethical judgment, adaptability, and strategic vision of the human leader.
You are no longer the person providing the answers. You are the architect defining the questions.
A perfect way to sum it up. Future leaders must combine intelligence with judgment.
And if you want to dive deeper into the mechanics of this integration and explore how to responsibly deploy these frameworks within your own enterprise, we highly encourage you to visit www.blackpagoda.com.
It is an indispensable resource.
It really is. It shows you how to leverage AI-powered strategy to grow, scale, and eventually sell your business in this new paradigm.
It is the blueprint for ensuring your organization remains on the right side of this technological divide.
But before we wrap up today's deep dive, we want to leave you with a completely different angle to ponder on your own. We've spent this entire time discussing how AI will perfectly optimize your operations and eliminate inefficiencies.
Right.
But consider the logical endpoint of this technological arms race. Soon, every major competitor in your industry will have access to the exact same hyper-optimized AI tools.
Everyone will have perfect data.
Everyone will have instant forecasting. So when absolute algorithmic perfection becomes the baseline standard for simply participating in the market, does the ultimate competitive advantage shift back to the very things AI tries to eliminate?
That is a fascinating thought.
Will the defining executive failure of the next decade be a lack of data or simply a lack of imagination? Will the next generation of breakout companies succeed, not because they are the most perfectly optimized, but because their human leaders are willing to be intentionally inefficient, idiosyncratic, and wonderfully unpredictable? Something to think about as you build your strategy. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.